So guys, welcome to part two of my interview with Lewis Jackson from CryptoLewLew. We're just going to start off where we left off last time, and it is going to be great. So guys, without further ado, why don't we get to it?
Yeah, and you can bet your bottom. No, I'm not going to say dollar. Bet your bottom XRP
Your last
that they're
XRP.
yeah that they will shift the narrative to make it sound like they are rescuing the situation.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Um,
Yeah,
and that will be
but
fed
it's a
down to the
plan.
majority of the people. It's all.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
There's no way the smartest people in the world
No.
didn't see this coming.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no.
Because
Absolutely.
if we can do it, if we can figure it out,
Sure.
they thought of it years ago.
Oh my
And
goodness, yes.
there's a big argument to say that they thought of this when Nixon changed the system over.
Hmm.
Um, as in, and there were people. There are videos of people saying this is going to cause a crash. I don't know when, but you
Right,
can't back something on nothing. And
right.
they were saying that back then
Yes, they
in
were.
black and white.
Yes, they were.
And so these are smart people. They know what the result is. It was just a
Yeah.
matter of time before this all came to
Have you
fruition.
listened to Jim Rickards and his whole Ice Nine kind of theory?
Yes, yes.
Oh my gosh. Doesn't that like sound like what we're going on? Like it literally
Well,
does. And it's like
it
that.
sounds exactly like what's happening, and
Yes.
so much so that Australia the other month actually was stopping people getting money out of their banks.
And India's doing away with all cash.
It's actually happening. It's like
Hmm.
it's not like, oh, this could happen. It's
Right.
actually happening, but
It's
for
actually
some
happening.
reason, when these things actually happen, we
Yep.
dismiss it for another excuse,
Yeah. Well,
or we
people don't want
believe.
to believe it, Lewis. They, the broader population. I mean, we're even us as, and hey, we're a fringe group, but within our group there are some fringes, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I would say we're relative moderates in comparison to where you
yeah.
can go down this rabbit trail. I mean, I've seen you do some interviews with Black Swan Capitalists and those guys, and boy, I've like had to think, yeah, like there's possibility there of what could go down. And it's probably going to, they're going to create some level of crisis. I had a little clip from Trudeau and being Prime Minister of Canada, and the guy's getting on there. And I think he really slipped here. He said, this pandemic affords us the opportunity to accelerate our pre-pandemic agenda. So before the pandemic happened, our pre-pandemic agenda for our great reset. I mean, come on. How, I mean,
Yeah.
if you can't see it any other way, and you've got all these global leaders come out and telling you this is going down, folks, and Canada
Yeah.
is on the forefront of, they are already ready to release a central bank digital currency.
Of course
And
they are.
it's just, and why the broader population looks at us as if we're half quacked. I'm telling you, I can't wait for the day when they say, my gosh, how right they were if we only listened.
No, well, just to alleviate that uh, kind of feeling from you, they will just be as they always have been.
Yeah.
The people in the middle are in the middle because that's how they think. They think
Yeah.
in that area. It's
Right.
not, and like I said, it's not good or bad. It just is the way it is.
Yeah.
And
They'll
so
be the first
we
ones to line up for UBI.
exactly,
Every one of them.
exactly.
So, and it's coming whether
And
you like it or not.
absolutely. And so when you think about that big moment when it all goes and you think all the people I talked to that didn't listen to me, they are oblivious
Yeah.
watching reruns of Friends.
Yeah.
They don't care.
You're right.
They don't even connect the dot that you were talking about that a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't even have to, it's not something to even look forward to, really, because
No.
everyone is going to find their place.
I mean, we all want our "I told you so" moment, but the truth is, when we
I
get there,
completely understand.
we're not really going to want it, because the pain that's going to be involved for a lot of people
Exactly.
is going to be
Yeah.
significant. Now, in terms of like, so from a global wealth standpoint, those of us that have been early into this, space, and we've been accumulating XRP. One of the biggest things that I get a lot are folks fearful that somehow, you know, governments around the world are going to confiscate their XRP. And you had worked on with Val Hill recently with respect to what a buyback would look like. Now, I just want to get your feedback on that. Number one, do you believe that there is the, excuse me, the potential for a confiscation or not? And also, what are your true thoughts with respect to a buyback if one did happen, and at what level? And then I guess the third question would be, if there was a buyback, what do you think the revaluation would be after such a buyback?
I know the answer to the third one, but I can't
Okay.
say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just can't. I don't want to risk anything. It's also overestimated, I think, what people believe my involvement is in that whole thing.
Okay.
But I do have access to the documents like other people don't. So
Okay.
um,
Okay. And
you know,
obviously you're
I
under
would-
an NDA. You can't really share that. I get that. No problem.
yeah, but man, I got a lot of flack online for being part of that committee. But
Oh,
people
really?
were,
I did not know that.
yeah, big time. I've never received more hate
Wow.
than that, and it was really frustrating because the actual intention of that group, of that committee, there's
Okay.
loads of people in that committee that you know that you think are great,
Mhm.
but they haven't announced. Anyway, that doesn't matter.
Okay, no, that's
Um,
interesting to hear. I'm sorry that that came your way, because I think that you being a part of that, the fact that they're reaching out to people in the community, because your fingers are more on the pulse of this community than what theirs are. And I can understand why they would want that kind of feedback. So I'm amazed that
so
people would
yeah,
throw darts at you for that, because really you're doing the whole ecosystem a favor.
this is exactly what I thought. I thought if you want to listen to someone online about
Yeah,
what's going on, do you not
right,
want someone who's got information from source, or do you want me
right.
to guess?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
what's the
yeah.
deal here?
That makes
Anyway,
sense. Yeah, good.
but the biggest problem people had about that whole committee thing was that
Mm.
they thought I'd switched sides.
Oh,
And
really? Wow, wow,
and
wow.
I get that, because if you join a committee and it's secret and all that kind of stuff, and it's about a buyback, people think that I believe that a buyback's happening. I will address it
Mm-hmm.
plainly and clearly here. I do
Mm-hmm.
not believe a buyback happens.
Okay.
To me, it makes no sense.
Okay.
For me, it seems like more of a play to let the powers that be know that we know what we hold,
Okay.
and we've actually got a value of what we believe the token is.
Sure.
It should be based on the situation. He's got a whole formula on there. It's amazing.
Sure.
Um, and so I think that's more of the play, and there's obviously a play there for him to get the word out to people. He wants to incorporate influencers in there. It's fine. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually smart to get the
Mm-hmm.
word out.
Yeah.
I contribute very little because
Okay.
I know a lot less than a lot of the people in that committee.
Okay.
From a technical standpoint, legal standpoint, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I don't fall into that category. I'm just someone who I understand more than most people, and I keep my finger on the pulse, and that's literally my involvement. I haven't suggested anything or done anything in that committee.
Well, I appreciate your transparency there, especially the fact that you're willing to come out and you say, hey, look, to me, it doesn't make sense that there was a buyback. But, you know, the thing, I guess in that sense, then I guess you would probably not feel that there's much risk of a confiscation either.
Exactly. And thank you for reminding me of that, because I really wanted to talk about that. So I've been doing a lot of diving recently into worst case scenarios surrounding the idea of confiscation.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be something really important for everyone to know. I can't stress this enough. We have been experimenting with the XRP ledger, me and a few people who develop, experimenting what the XRP ledger looks like. You know, on the code level, and it's actually all there, which we know it's all there, but no one looks because no one knows what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at this thinking, wait, why do we need a ledger, Nano? Wait, why do we need an exchange?
Mm-hmm.
I can access my funds right here. I don't need anything. I don't need this device.
Right.
So when I think of a confiscation of an unhackable ledger, which is my video that came out today.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one yet. I'll have to watch it.
The actual reason why it's unhackable, and the feature that exists on the XRP ledger to make it unhackable.
Okay.
You realize that they can't confiscate it. It's not even
Feasible.
possible.
It's not feasible for them to do it.
No, there are rules. It's called invariant checking. There's a rule on the XRP ledger.
Invariant checking. I'm going to look
correct.
At invariant. Okay.
So invariant. I like to think I explained it well on the video. So
okay, I'll have to watch that one.
Watch that.
Sure. Yeah, I will most definitely.
It's basically a feature where the word invariant in developer language means rules.
Okay.
So essentially, it's rule checking. So if a transaction doesn't meet all of the rules, like a valid signature, wallet address, malicious attempt, or whatever, doesn't fit the rule, the transaction is terminated.
Right.
So they couldn't come in with, I would assume they wouldn't have even had the right signature if they tried to do it maliciously, because only you have that. So they couldn't, they just can't get into the ledger to get your XRP.
Right.
Sure, they could kick your door down and take your ledger nano.
Sure.
But then again, you know the code, you know the seed phrases.
Right, of course.
You know the wallet address, but they could have that as well, because there's public part of that.
Well, that's public, but the private key,
But it doesn't stop there, because if you want to actually access funds or transfer funds directly on the XRP ledger using code, using JavaScript or any of these code languages, you need something called a seed wallet address. This isn't readily given to you by the companies that give you the cold storage wallets.
No, they don't.
This is a different number and letter combination. You have to request that from those companies. When you have requested that and you've got that seed phrase, you can literally bury that ledger nano 100 feet underground, and you can always access it using a computer that has access to the developer, the coding language, and the platform that you use to run the code.
Right.
If you can do that, you can transact on the XRP ledger. You can move your XRP from one wallet to any wallet that exists. You can even move it to an exchange. But in this instance, exchanges are down, ledger the company's gone down, decent company's gone down. You can still access your XRP.
Yeah, that's one of the amazing features about the XRP ledger. You don't even require an internet connection to transact on it. It's unbelievable, really. That is almost, it's hard to even, get that in there. I had done a video a little while back with all of the FUD that came out about hardware wallets delisting, and of course the language was delisting, which it's not a real, let's say they discontinued support of an application. And how even if that happened, you haven't just lost everything and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you can even create a paper wallet if you really wanted to, but there are mechanisms where you can literally go in with your seed phrase and the same seed phrase, as long as it's meeting the right compatible standard, and establish a brand new wallet, even without Ledger, if Ledger was your wallet, Ledger Nano or whatever. But like what you're saying is to be able to directly, most people have never done it. I don't think I have. I put in a few trust lines and stuff like that, but I've never, made any kind of a transaction utilizing the ledger directly itself, which I think I think I have a curiosity to learn.
I will say this. I wasn't going to say it, but I think it's super exciting for anyone. We're working on that. We're working on having that available for everyone to do, because people need to know how to do that without knowing
a document. You're going to create a how-to kind of, or
an actual platform.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Of course, the Zoom wallet is really great in terms of like being able to make, different transactions and stuff like that. I
think Zoom is so good. I love it. The downside, I think, is it being on your phone. I don't know, something less trustworthy about a phone than a different physical device for that sole purpose. Sure. But what I will say is that Zoom, or however people say it.
I've always called it Zoom, but who knows?
Either way, it doesn't matter. We all know what we're talking about.
We know what we're talking
about. They are, what people don't realize is that they have a Zoom Pro account. I got one straight away.
Okay.
And they have the capability on there for you to basically start operating like your own bank on the XRP ledger.
Wow.
Which is considerably more advanced than the Ledger Nano is currently. I'm not saying it
Sure.
won't get there,
Yeah.
but you have the ability to set up escrow accounts
Yep.
to
Yep.
you know
I've heard of
send
that.
do what you do with an
Mhm.
escrow account. So if someone
Yep.
doesn't know, you can basically if you have a 2-year-old daughter like I do, I
Yes.
can set some money into the escrow and say I want you to deliver 10 XRP every year until she's, or every year after she's 18 until she's 30.
Yeah.
And it'll just operate like that. Even if you lost all your wallet addresses and everything,
She'll be
it
able
would
to live
just
pretty good
deliver on
on
that.
10 XRP every year till she's
Exactly,
30.
exactly.
So
So they have
yeah.
features like that. They're working on ramping and off ramping directly on the ledger, which you can't
Yeah.
currently do directly on the ledger.
Right.
So this is all amazing stuff. And so I really rate some, even though I don't have assets on there currently. It's certainly part of, I established a pro account straight away because I forgot what it was. It was like a 50 XRP or something to set up I forgot what
Yeah,
it was.
you have to
180
open it
maybe.
with a base amount, and then
Yeah, but I
I
thought
remember
180 XRP right now is better than 180 in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's for sure. Wow. So with respect to the escrow, just a question on that. Now, I have are you aware? I don't know for certain. I've heard this. And so I've actually communicated it, but not with firsthand knowledge, but that the escrow has been pre-allocated in some degree or pre-purchased in some degree, that it's not all although Ripple does obviously control and manage, and it's like an asset under management kind of deal. How much of that do you think is really Ripple's? How much of the escrow belongs to other parties, or do you think has been pre-allocated?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I think this is I've got a question as well that also no one is answering or able to answer, which we'll get into later. But I just all I know is that powers that be eventually will not allow a monopoly to exist.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So bearing that in mind, Ripple always have to have 49% of the ownership of everything. 49 is probably a bit too close for the powers that be to a monopoly. So it would make sense for me for some of it to be pre-allocated to avoid any chance of a monopoly continuing on. It would make sense, but again, these are all just like I'm guessing at this point.
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
You can't see
you're right.
into that.
And that's, and I think that there's a healthy amount of speculation, but sometimes I think we step out onto the water of information and we infer things that are completely false. And one of them you touched on recently, and I did as well. I did it I'll never do it this way again, because I know what my thinking was and what my motivation in doing was behind it. So I had gotten a ton of questions about the whole XRP2 deal. And I responded to that with a critique of where it was coming from, because I got like a bazillion questions from, my community. And finally, one question came through with a link, and it came from, an individual who was kind of, making some really huge leaps. Like, for instance, the FinCEN fine that was delivered originally back in 2015 was really a bribe under the table in order for them to allow thus and such to take place. And I thought, that's a big, stretch. That is absolute supposition. I have no issue with, people throwing out, ideas, opinions, thoughts, something, conjecture. I think that's good. It's good for healthy debate. But this practically was scaring a tremendous amount of folks in my group, and some of them to the point where they thought, oh my gosh, we're being totally duped with XRP that we hold. The big boys are going to have a different XRP than what we're going to have, and we're just getting hosed. So
I know who you're talking about.
And I don't want to, and I don't want to rub put the thing through the mud there, because my intent there was just to kind of give peace of mind, to folks. And plus I also felt like, the delivery was, rather, abrupt and really poking at some people that I think, have really kind of invested quite a bit into the space. But needless to say, where do you think, with respect to that, and you did a great job, by the way. I thought the way you did it, I wish I had did it that way, because you did it from a really great place where you took the information, you dissected it, and you explained clearly where whole XRP2 as a separate legal entity under a subsidiary of Ripple in order to manage the sale of an asset, not a security, just like Ford Motor Company sells Mustang cars, Ripple through a subsidiary has sold XRP, but as an asset. And there's a significant difference. Venture capital is how Ripple started, just so folks will know. But I mean, in that capacity, like, because we are in this space, how do you filter? How do you digest? How do you communicate to your community on the way in which, when you're dealing with things that you feel or could be potentially damaging in terms of, information in a way, because I'm trying to say this very democratically, but sometimes our speculation can go way beyond our speculation, you know what I mean? And it can get almost to a point of maybe there's a little danger there. What do you think, Ian?
I think this comes down to, and I will make sure to watch that video that you made as well, because I haven't seen that. But I'm sure it wasn't nearly as bad as you think it was, because I can't imagine you doing putting a foot wrong that badly.
Well, it wasn't a mean one, but I did kind of peel it apart in a way to kind of show the flaws in the thinking. It's what I was really thinking about, not the person that was communicating it.
Really. No. I understand that, and I wouldn't have expected that from you anyway. It's everyone's got their own style. I tend to just say it how it makes most sense in my own head.
Yeah.
And because my own head is different than your own head, it just comes out different, doesn't it? So
yeah, of course.
We're basically communicating to ourselves when we talk, or at least to those who, like, I started my channel to tell my friends about what was going on.
Sure.
So it's always had that kind of tone. But that was specifically the whole XRP2 thing and the outrage that happened from all of that. And just the FUD and everyone being so scared, it just showed everyone's true emotional state.
I think you're right.
There was nothing about XRP2 that was worrying. When I saw it, I thought, like, I didn't know about XRP2 before all this came out. I'd just say that.
Oh,
but
okay.
There was a sentence or two in to learning about it. I was like, oh.
Yeah, there was nothing nefarious about it. There was in fact, it was in the open. It was out in, this was information that was available since before 2015, and it was out into the marketplace. I mean, and let's remember too, Ripple is a legal structure. Now, having said that, what an amazing, I mean, it's a $15 billion unicorn. I mean, and they utilize that term unicorn for companies that have reached at least $1 billion without being publicly traded, right? And so it is massive. I mean, that is really huge. And it's an ever-growing ecosystem. And when you consider that, I could see why, I suppose, governments could be afraid of a legal entity like that, that's not publicly traded, that could potentially control 50 billion XRP. It's kind of it could be a scary thought. But, the whole idea of how they established that legal structure was completely above board, and there was nothing really sneaky about it. But in this marketplace, because there's, like you said, it really just revealed the emotional state of a lot of people that are participating in this ecosystem. And my encouragement to them would be, go out. If you want to get confidence, if you want to take fear and your anxiety out of the equation, just familiarize yourself with what you hold. Just get to know it. And you won't feel, you're just going to be relaxed. It'll be like, okay, that's my car in my garage. I know when I turn it over, it's going to do this, this, and this. You're not going to be living with the anxiety of, oh, well, this or that or whatever, could it break down? Could it blow up? Is someone else going to take it? At least for me, that has made a big difference.
Absolutely. And if anything, that XRP2 thing increased my confidence in Ripple, because as soon as I read that that's how businesses like Apple are structured, where it's just easier and more efficient for them to have these subsidiaries that handle the legal side of things for certain things, licensing, for example.
Yes,
that's how they structure themselves. That's how these trillion-dollar companies, I don't know what Apple or Google are worth, but that's how they operate. Absolutely. And our little Ripple, our baby Ripple, is structuring themselves the exact same way. It's immensely encouraging.
Mm.
And it just increases the, what do you call it? The conviction.
Yeah, you have a
Increases
greater level of assurance. You have
yeah,
it just gives you, you know, a lot of folks, like when it comes to legal structures, just thinking it from this perspective. So I remember when I was working with CRA and I was living in Alberta and working in Alberta, and the Law Society of Alberta was putting on a presentation for high net worth individuals. And a fellow who worked with the Department of Justice in Alberta at the time, I went as a representative for, you know, the Crown as with respect to tax. For those that don't know, when we say the Crown, we mean the government
yeah,
or in the Westminster system. So needless to say, so I went with him and he and I listened through this. And this was for, at that time, this is for individuals that had $5 million or greater of net worth. And they were talking about developing legal structures in such a way as to limit your liability. And one of the biggest things that comes out is control is better than ownership. So if you were to establish multiple legal structures, so, you know, you have, you know, LLC or an incorporated entity that holds all your non-liquid assets, something else that holds your liquid assets, a parent company that manages both, and a family trust or some sort of trust agreement that holds all the shares and these multiplicity of companies. And the benefit of that in some aspects, how they were touting it, is if, you know, if Sonny Boy over here, you know, he gets into the BMW and rather than driving into the garage, slams into the front room of your next door neighbor, they're only going to be able to sue you for the value of what they're going to get for insurance, not for your entire estate. But majority of folks don't think of legal structures that way because they never had to insulate their wealth from being potentially attacked. And so when you're dealing with big corporations, a lot of times the division of these various legal structures, you know, at non-arm's length or even at arm's length, they're done in that way with intention to insulate the whole body of the, you know, of the corporation, so that there's not liability. Because if Ripple, you know it right now, if Ripple was the ones directly selling that XRP, then the SEC would have been all over that to say, there you go, there it is, there's the ICO right there, you know. But they didn't do that. They raised money through venture capital, right, that they ended up paying back, by the way, and that's how they got their $15 billion valuation. But they had seed money, venture capital money to raise up their business, and they were gifted XRP, and XRP was an asset of the organization that, yes, they did sell, but they did not sell it the way in which a lot of people think. And that matters. How the mechanism for what happened has a huge significance when it comes to, you know, the whole legal framework. And it's so vitally important to truly understand that. And I think, like you said, knowing that will give a person a greater sense of, you know, comfort and assurance for what they're dealing with. That's what's made me feel fairly confident that they are probably going to come out with a win on this case, at least, you know, from a aftermarket perspective for sure, because and it's understanding the framework of what the Howey test was, right? The oranges were not the security. It was the investment contract that was the security under the Howey test, right? I mean, that would be almost ludicrous to say, well, all oranges that are produced in the United States now are securities. So every grocery store that sells oranges needs to be licensed and registered with the SEC. That's what they're really saying, or trying to say anyway. So that was kind of neat and interesting. So what do you think? What do you see coming down the road in this next new year? What are your thoughts for 2023 as we're kind of right there at the door?
I think if we put together a range of dates, every single date from now until late March, end of March, let's say. This is talking about the legal case.
Okay.
Let everyone guess the day that it's going to go. The one with the least votes is probably going to be the day. Because that's how it happens. If everyone thinks it's going to be a date, then it's not going to be that date. And what I will say though is I don't see it going to March before price action. But like I don't see price action not happening. That was a lot of negatives there. I see price action happening before March.
Sure.
One of the main reasons of that is because it's kind of strange when you look at the judge. I've forgotten her name.
Torres, Angelique. Yeah, Torres. Yeah.
Yeah. We've all seen how the misconduct of the SEC has continued on, and it's been ridiculous and it's blatant, and she knows it too. Like, she's acknowledged it.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So at a certain point, when does it get to the point where you think, is she in on this? Yeah. Like, if we keep delaying, or she keeps entertaining these delays, at what point does the public perception switch on her? And I just think if it gets to March, for example, and then she gives in again to they again don't want the emails released or something like that, because they find a way to do that every time.
Sure.
And then she goes, yeah, right. You got to think. Everyone will start thinking or having suspicions about the judge at that point, and that gets really dangerous, especially for her reputation.
Well, and for the legal framework of and the idea of what we think of as justice. Yeah,
exactly. Right. So I think take the least guessed date from now until end of March, and that's probably around the time when it's going to happen. It's going to happen when we don't know. What I do think is going to happen is that resolution will come, whatever that is. Price action will go up. Settlement gets announced in that order.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is gets announced.
Or we get a summary judgment win, and settlement happens because, they don't want to face an appeal. Something to that effect. What's interesting is I did a video just yesterday, actually, and what the supposition I was throwing out there is, in the last two major moves with XRP in terms of price action. So I took them back. So January 4th of 2017, we all saw that XRP was trading at 0.006 something or other, right? So just a little hair over a half a penny. Then January 4th of 2018, to the day, the price of XRP is $3.84, a $6,000 investment, netted somebody 3.84 million, let's say, if they bought it at the bottom and sold at the top, which is, pretty almost impossible to do, but let's imagine that happened. Now, at that time, the only exchange in the United States that was actually moving XRP was Poloniex. And it was most of the movement for XRP was coming out of Southeast Asia that was driving the price. Well, that's not the only time that happened, Lewis. The second time that happened was after December of 2020, when the SEC dropped the lawsuit on Ripple. Price goes down to 17.48 cents, right? Well, by April 14th, just a few months later, it was $1.97. Now, let's remember, almost every exchange in the United States, the world's greatest economy, had delisted XRP. And it was only available practically on Uphold and limited amounts. Yet the price did an 1,100% move with an SEC lawsuit on top of it. Does Ripple really need to win the case, or does there has to be a settlement in order for us to see a bull run take off with XRP? I'm not sure. I'm totally convinced that we have to wait until we get an answer for there to genuinely be price action, because we've already seen 2 times historically when America was cut completely practically out of the picture, and it still did phenomenal.
Yes, I know you're saying. I tend to think the moves that we've seen in the past, even though they felt monumental at the time, I think those were blips in I versus what's coming.
Yeah, for what's coming. Yeah.
Yes, you can get something like that spike from 0.000 something all the way up to $1. You can get that happen with XRP because that's basically just someone using the system. That's what happens. And I do actually think the world waits on clarity, the US clarity. But I think about it like this: if Bank of America will not use ODL until the clarity comes,
right? How
many other people at the same caliber as Bank of America are doing the same thing?
You're right about that. I think you're right, because there's the speculative price action that moves.
Exactly.
Then there's the utility price action, which will make the speculative price action look, like you just said, a little blip.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, the speculation outcome, if we had a solid bull run with XRP purely on speculation, the Fibonacci's are showing a $66 to $68 XRP.
Right.
Yeah, without utility.
Right. Without utility. Yep.
So if
at the top of the scale.
At the top. at the 4.236.
Yeah, the
But
4.236. Yeah.
so if you're kind of in doubt about the price going way up, someone watching this video and they think I'll never get to $100. Well, purely based
Yeah.
on biology and human behavior and decision making of buying and selling,
Yeah.
purely biologically based, we can still get to 66. So I think if Bank of America just turned on, it would be three figures.
And you know what's going to happen, man? 95% of people are going to be out long before it even hits 66 bucks. It hits $10, 50% majority. I mean, it's just going to be the people that are really going to be are the ones that are just, like I said, you know, you just don't have any intention of really selling it because of what you know it is and what it's going to be, how it's going to impact the rest of the world in terms of like just application alone. But I think that's what's going to happen.
I absolutely agree. I perhaps have been a little bit harsh in the past, saying that 99.999999% of people would sell at $10. But I'll be a little bit easier on everyone and actually give probably the most reasonable outlook on things. Is that there's an equilibrium, as we've talked about, in the world. There's a certain amount of people that feel like they've been wrecked.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of people in the middle. And there's a certain amount of people that are at the top.
Yeah.
And you can directly correlate to that, to in that graph, how much those people know and how much of a plan they've had. There's like a direct correlation. The people with the plan will end up in that top 1%.
Yes.
The people without a plan will get wrecked.
Yeah.
The people that got kind of lucky or had some sort of a plan but never really followed it through, they'll end up in the middle. And it was a great time, but it wasn't life-changing.
Right. I find that most of the people that are very like really cynical and negative are people that bought XRP back in, you know, because remember, Coinbase didn't list XRP till February 28th of 2019. That bull run was long over, and they were buying it at like, you know, ridiculously high prices until it crashed. And of course, you know, they're like, well, the promise never got fulfilled, and they just feel like they got shafted. And so they come out and they're just so negative. And you hear them, well, I've been waiting for 5 years. Oh, you've been waiting for 5 years. So you bought in the beginning of 2017 and watched that big move. And then you, well, no, I don't know. And, you know, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah.
You know, but what you say makes perfect sense. It just seems like I agree with you. I think that those that are have already put a discipline in their mind, that are fully convinced of what it truly represents as you know, a mechanism, even if it, not even to think of it as an investment, just think of it as just a mechanism, that those folks are the ones that are going to say, look, you know, hey, I'll invest in all of these other ones here, because a rising tide, you know, is going to raise all ships. XRP gets settled. I'm telling you what, man, that spring has been so friggin' compressed that it's going to cause the catalyst. It's going to be the spark that lights this mountain of TNT up over here, and the whole market is going to go wild. And remember this, they get legal clarity. Now, a lot of people don't see it this way, because when Judge Torres, let's say Judge Torres comes out and says, hey, XRP, you know, is not a security, well, that sets for us in this common law system as a legal precedent, right? But that is not legislation in the way in which we traditionally think about it, when, you know, a bill's gone before, you know, Parliament or Congress or whatever, and has been passed into law. But it sets the interpretation of the laws that exist now. Now, my guess is if they come out and they actually say that, you're not too much longer going to see so much regulation and law coming into play. And to a great degree, I actually welcome regulation into this space to a relative amount. I think it's important for us, incumbent upon us, to get our voices out there and be a part of crafting it. But we definitely need it. Otherwise, we're not going to see major institutional usage, adoption, like you said, Bank of America or anybody else. They're just not going to step out into that water and do it, you know, and so we want that down the road. But if
I firmly believe that the regulations are written.
Yeah, they might probably
as well, because if what has it happened that yesterday, Brazil of all countries, a BRICS nation, by the way, passed. I mean, I read the 70-something page document about their legislation, because that's what it takes to have conviction, I guess, to read these obscure translations of Portuguese into
Well,
English,
it's
these massive
definitely
documents.
commitment.
I just love it too much to not.
I
But
understand that.
they've basically essentially set the standard for regulations on cryptocurrency in Brazil.
Yeah,
And if Brazil have done that,
right.
India have done that, China
Sure,
have done that,
sure,
Russia have done that,
sure,
Saudi Arabia have done that, and all the
sure.
other ones that are joining the BRICS nations have also
Yeah,
done that. So
sure.
you think USA hasn't done that?
Yeah, yeah.
it's
You know
it's
what?
all
You're right. Yeah,
prepared,
I agree with that.
all prepared without the actual go
Yeah, it is.
having been set.
Well, yeah, I can say that you're right on that. I can say that for sure. And it's quite an interesting way of thinking about it. Well, man, I tell you what, we could probably go on for another 3 hours
We could.
here, but I value you. I really want to say thank you. I mean, it was great that you would, just come out and have this conversation and, really just kind of the thinking it values a lot. There's a saying that I love. It goes like this: as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens a man. And I really
Love
have
that.
gained a lot from hearing what you had to share today. And I just want to say thank you, number one. And hey, Merry Christmas to you guys over there. And I hope you have a wonderful new year with your family. And I remember the days when I had a little kid, at 2 years old. Now I've got my grandkids. So it's kind of nice because I get to relive it all over again. I got a couple grandsons arriving today to celebrate Christmas. So I'm really
Great.
looking forward to that.
Well, I wish you the happiest of Christmases as well, and I appreciate your contribution to this space and doing it all with such an infectious smile,
Oh, I
with some
appreciate that.
great information and background as well to supplement. So thank you as well.
All right, thanks.